The Strait of Hormuz remains the world's most volatile maritime choke point, where global energy security hangs by threads.
A Nimitz-class aircraft carrier sails silently through the narrow corridor, while Iranian radar stations track every single movement.
Suddenly, the radar screen fills with dozens of high-speed contacts, launching from hidden coves along the shore.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guard deploys a swarm of fast attack craft designed to overwhelm sophisticated Western naval defenses. Visual confirmation reveals the swarm is closing distance rapidly and ignores all standard radio warnings in English language.
The tactical action officer requests permission to engage as the swarm
enters the inner defensive bubble of ships.
These asymmetric tactics are specifically intended to confuse automated targeting systems and create chaos within the fleet formation.
Defensive weapon systems transition to live status while the Admiral waits for a definitive sign of hostile intent.
Tehran believes that numbers can defeat technology, but they are about to learn a very painful historical lesson.
The first shot is fired, and the rules of engagement change instantly for every American sailor on watch. The attack is officially underway, and the massive American war machine begins its calculated and devastatingly loud response.
Combat air patrol fighters launch in seconds to provide overhead cover and target the swarm from the sky.
Precise kinetic fire begins to tear through the thin fiberglass hulls of the lead Iranian fast attack craft.
The overwhelming power of modern naval artillery makes short work of the unprotected vessels within the primary swarm.
From above, the view is clinical, as infrared sensors track the systematic destruction of the entire attacking force. The conflict escalates as larger Iranian naval assets join the fray by firing missiles at the American jets.
Electronic countermeasures and magnesium flares successfully divert the threat while the pilot prepares for a counterstrike maneuver.
Retaliation is swift, as the pilot releases a Harpoon missile, locked onto the signature of the Iranian frigate.
Sea-skimming missiles are nearly impossible to detect until it is too late for the target to react effectively.
The Iranian crew struggles to contain the inferno, as their pride and joy begins to lift heavily sideways. From space, the magnitude of the lopsided engagement is clear as the Iranian fleet is systematically neutralized. Desperate for a victory, Tehran orders its land-based missile batteries to engage the American carrier strike group.
Advanced radar systems detect the launch immediately, and interceptors are fired to neutralize the incoming land-based threats.
The defensive shield proves impenetrable for the aging technology currently employed by the Iranian military command structure.
The U.S. Navy identifies the source of coordination as two converted oil platforms used for military surveillance.
Precision-guided munitions are released to remove the eyes and ears of the Iranian Naval Coordination Network.
The platforms, which once coordinated the swarm attacks, are now reduced to twisted metal and burning oil.
The speed of the American response leaves the Iranian leadership in a state of absolute and total shock.
The operation was designed to send a clear message regarding the freedom of navigation in international waters.
In less than 1 hour, the balance of power in the Gulf has been decisively and violently recalibrated.
The Sabalan is one of Iran's most capable ships, but it is sailing into a certain trap. Pilots wait for the final confirmation to engage as the Iranian destroyer prepares its own missile systems.
A single laser-guided bomb penetrates deep into the engine room before detonating with incredible and devastating force.
The ship is paralyzed, and the Iranian Navy realizes they have no defense against such precision aerial attacks.
The carrier continues its transit, showing that the swarm tactics failed to even slow the mission progress.
The shock in Tehran is palpable, as decades of planning for a swarm war evaporate in minutes.
Quantity has a quality of its own, but it cannot overcome the reach of modern integrated sensors.
Sunken hulls serve as a silent warning to any nation attempting to block the world's vital trade.
Overhead surveillance ensures that no further surprises can be launched from the Iranian coastline without immediate detection.
Ground forces remain ready to move if the conflict expands beyond the sea and into the littoral.
The battle continues into the night, as the U.S. Navy maintains total control over the entire region.
If the strait closes, the global economy would face a catastrophic shock that few nations could survive.
The carrier's magazine is filled with enough firepower to level entire military complexes if the order arrives.
Elite squadrons provide the tip of the spear in a conflict where precision is more important than.
Subsurface threats remain a concern, as the Iranian Navy attempts to hide its remaining assets from sonar.
Anti-submarine warfare teams listen for the distinct acoustic signature of Iranian diesel engines hiding in the depths.
In theory, the swarm overwhelms defenses, but in practice the Americans can engage multiple targets simultaneously now.
The first day of the engagement ends with the Iranian Navy effectively removed from the tactical board.
The U.S. possesses a long-range reach that allows them to strike targets deep inside the Iranian mainland.
The psychological impact of losing major surface combatants in such a short time cannot be overstated today.
Stability in this region is not just a military goal, but an absolute economic necessity for everyone.
Vigilance is the only thing standing between a peaceful transit and a sudden deadly ambush in Hormuz.
Electronic warfare aircraft like the EA-6B Prowler blind the enemy, making them shoot at ghost radar targets.
The remnants of the swarm retreat into the safety of shallow coastal waters, where large ships cannot.
Drones now provide a persistent presence that did not exist during the original conflict in the 80s.
Commanders must weigh the risks of escalation against the need to protect the lives of their sailors.
The American kill chain is refined to a level where reactions occur in seconds, rather than minutes.
The sound of naval gunfire is a terrifying reminder of the power contained within a single strike.
Publicly, Tehran remains defiant, but privately, the military command is reeling from the sheer scale of losses.
The world watches the strait with bated breath, knowing that any mistake could lead to global catastrophe.
Damage assessment is critical to ensure that no further threats remain active within the primary transit lane. Intelligence gathered today will be used to train future generations of sailors for the next potential conflict.
Aircraft return to the deck for refueling and rearming as the carrier group prepares for another patrol. The final Iranian vessel retreats toward the coast, marking the end of the day's intense kinetic activity.
Minor damage to the American fleet is quickly repaired, while the Iranian losses remain permanent and total.
The silence of the night belies the violence that occurred here just a few short hours ago.
Despite the defeat, Iran continues to build more advanced missiles to challenge the U.S. Navy again.
Technology has advanced significantly since 1988, but the fundamental geography of the strait has not changed.
Tehran continues to produce hundreds of small boats, hoping that sheer numbers will eventually win the day.
Training for swarm defense is now a standard part of every American pilot's pre-deployment combat preparation.
The sheer size of a carrier is a psychological weapon in itself, representing the might of America.
The cat-and-mouse game continues as both sides watch each other from across the narrow waterway.
Future conflicts may be decided by lasers that can engage swarm targets at the speed of light.
Once a ship enters the Narrows, there is nowhere to hide from the eyes of the enemy. The environmental cost of naval warfare is another heavy price paid by the nations of the Gulf. Adrenaline fades and is replaced by the realization that they have just participated in a historic battle.
Isolated outposts act as tripwires for the Iranian military trying to maintain a presence in the strait.
The human cost of these political games is felt most by the families waiting to their return.
Tyranny. Logistics is the backbone of American power, allowing the fleet to stay on station for many months.
The search for threats never stops as the fleet moves into a state of high tactical alert.
Spreading the fleet makes it harder for a swarm to find a single target to focus on. Illumination rounds turn night into day, making it impossible for speedboats to approach the ships unseen tonight. Diplomacy often follows the sound of guns, as the reality of military failure sinks in for Tehran.
The threat of further strikes keeps the Iranian military confined to their bases for the time being.
They watch, but they do not fire, knowing that a single shot would mean their immediate destruction.
The total loss of 2 frigates and numerous smaller craft crippled the Iranian Navy for a decade.
The weight of the day's events is felt by everyone, regardless of their role in the battle.
Today the U.S. has even better tools to ensure that a swarm never gets close again.
The mission is complete, and the strait remains open for the passage of global commerce and oil.
International law supports the right of free passage, but enforcing it requires a massive and capable navy.
The message sent 47 minutes after the first shot was heard loud and clear in every capital.
The arms race in the Gulf continues, as both sides prepare for the next inevitable confrontation here.
The carrier remains the ultimate symbol of power in a world where the seas are still contested.
A new generation of sailors will soon take their place on the front lines of global security.
Building a navy takes years, but losing one can happen in less than an hour of combat.
Tehran was in shock because they underestimated the speed and the precision of the American naval response.
The Strait of Hormuz remains a quiet but deadly reminder of what happens when a swarm fails.